And ladies and gentlemen, introducing to you our MC for today. Attorney Roderick Dicky R.C. Salazar III is a senior partner of Philippine law firm Fortune Narvaza and Salazar. With over 39 years in the practice of law, he specializes in mining, corporate and commercial law, mergers and acquisition, real estate, law, taxation, projects, energy and natural resources law. He is an active member of the Chamber of Mines of the Philippines, executive and legal committees and trustees of the Philippine Mining Exploration Association. Dicky was recently included as an icon in the Asia Business Law Journal list of 2025 top 100 lawyers in the Philippines. And in previous years, he was also listed in the 2025 edition and in a past edition of the International Who's Who of Mining Lawyers for the Philippines. He was ranked as the leading lawyer in natural resources and mining by Chambers Global 2025 and prior years, and is highly recommended as a leading lawyer in projects, energy, and natural resources by Chambers Asia Pacific 2025. He is included in Asia Legal 500 2026 Edition Hall of Fame for lawyers in projects and energy, and considered as a leading partner in corporate law by the Asia Legal 500 2025 edition and for prior years. And ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause to our MC for today, Attorney Roderick Dicky R.C. Salazar III.
Thank you, Joanne, for that very kind introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You must forgive me because I just woke up after watching our Filipina tennis ace, Alexander Ayala, beat the number 2 seeded Elena Rybakina. Imagine that, a Filipina beating the number 2 in tennis. But we are performers. Filipinos are performers, even in the mining field. And that is why we are here again today. So today, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 84th Philippine Mining Club Luncheon on the topic Forging a Stronger Mining Sector, New Approaches to Energy, Water, Assets, and Governance. As Joanne told you, I am to be your MC and moderator for today's session. So we are privileged to be joined by distinguished representatives from the government, members from the Philippine Mining Club and the Philippine Mining and Exploration Association, industry leaders, technical experts, and our valued marketing partners. And thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We have started earlier than usual because of our long list of speakers, and for your continued commitment to advancing responsible and sustainable mining in the Philippines. This luncheon is more than a gathering of professionals. It is an opportunity to engage and exchange ideas, explore emerging solutions, and strengthen collaboration across the industry. As mining continues to evolve, discussions on energy innovation, water management, asset optimization, and effective governance have never been more interesting and relevant. And so we are fortunate to have with us an exceptional lineup of speakers who will share their expertise and perspectives on these critical issues. I encourage everyone to engage actively, to connect with fellow attendees, and make the most of today's conversations. In addition, we are delighted to welcome Yaman PH. It's an organization composed of mining, engineering, and geology students from Mapua University, the University of the Philippines, and Adamson University. If there are any members of Yaman PH, may we ask you to stand up and be acknowledged. There you are. This is the future of the mining industry in the Philippines and worldwide. Thank you for your continued interest in mining and studying mining, and we look forward to welcoming you later as professionals. So we are pleased to have a few housekeeping reminders as well. And for those that need certificates of attendance, this will be available upon request through the PMC Secretariat. And kindly send your request to info@philippineminingclub.com. We will have later a question and answer session following the presentation. So we encourage you to take note and answer and ask your questions throughout the program. Once again, thank you for joining us. And so therefore, let us begin our journey toward forging a stronger mining sector. Good morning and welcome to the 84th PMC Luncheon. For our first session, let me introduce our panelists. We have 4 today. And our first speaker is Marc Dufour. He is the principal hydrogeologist and vice president for mining and groundwater at DHI, and a recognized expert in hydrogeological modeling with FE flow. He has extensive experience in groundwater flow as well as mass and heat transport, with a strong focus on regional groundwater management, mining and geothermal applications, and his topic will be on water in mining, reducing risk through better models and decisions. Our next speaker after Robin would be Brandon Nang. He is a co-founder and chair of AMPD Energy, and having worked directly with AMPD's customers and engineering teams to develop the company's core technology stack around hard-to-abate sectors, he possesses a deep understanding of how to turn the technological state-of-the-art into products which deliver transformational, scalable, and practical outcomes for the company's customers. His topic is 20% lower, transplanting construction's new battery normal in mine sites. Ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Na. Our third speaker will be Kate Vershinina. She is an environmental, social, and governance ESG professional with over 20 years of international experience in the practical implementation of ESG management tools and approaches to sustainability in the mining industry. She has successfully managed multidisciplinary long-term projects and has extensive operational management skills. She will be discussing the ESG factors in resource and reserves reporting. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate Vershinina. Our fourth speaker, certainly not the least, is Raj Singh. He's the hoisting sales manager for Australia and Southeast Asia at ABB, where he leads the development and execution of regional sales strategies for underground mine hoisting solutions. And he is particularly passionate about the transition from conventional truck haulage to shaft hoisting systems and the role that electrification, digitalization, and automation play in improving safety, productivity, and sustainability in underground mining. His topic is ramps to ropes, lifting productivity with mine hosts. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Raj Singh. So with the 4 speakers, we will start with Mr. Marc Dufour's presentation. Robin, thank you.
The topic of my talk is about water in mining and how we can reduce risk through better model and decision. So just a few words about DHI. DHI is a Danish company. This is the headquarters in Copenhagen. If you visit, please, you are welcome to reach out. We have about 1,000 employees in DHI. And most of us are water experts. So it's basically a water company. We exist since 60 years. So it's a pretty old, let's say, company. And an important point is we are a foundation, which means that all the profit is actually reinvested into research, innovation, and the people. Maybe you know some software we develop. We develop a lot of water tools like FeeFlow, MikeShe. You can see them as a toolbox, but first we are consultants. So we actually help a client to solve challenging problem with water. These, just to give you a quick idea of our offices, we are spread out quite a lot in the world. Sadly, we don't have an office yet in the Philippines, but we're not far in Malaysia and Singapore. Very quickly, this is a toolbox, as I mentioned. We develop all of this software since 60 years. All what we do is water management, groundwater, surface water, ocean, rivers, sediment, anything related with water. So if you have any water concern, please call us. So back to the topic, water in mining and how we can reduce risk through better model and decision. So I was thinking about this talk, and this is basically the summary. I tried to put it in one picture. So when you open a mine, typically you are very focused on the minerals and how much ore body and how much you can extract from the ground. But sometimes you don't see the big wave of water risk coming. And the wave is made of the regulators, communities, environment-sensitive receptors, the investor as well. Everybody has concern about the mine. So basically, you need to be prepared. So you need to pass from this picture to that one. And the idea is you can create a wall of protection against the issues that might come. And how you do that? You need a better monitoring system. You need a stronger hydrogeological team, hydrologist team. You need some decision support platform as MikeMine. You need uncertainty analysis. Groundwater and geology is uncertain. It's not like engineering where you can measure everything. This is geology. You never know what's going on in the ground at 300 meters or 1,000 meters down. So you cannot survive without understanding uncertainty. And obviously you can do model. So back to the presentation. The three messages I wanted to start with is water risk is a business risk. That's my first message. When we talk about water, we can talk about stopping production, increase operational cost, delay of permit, raise of slope stability issue, and so on. So first of all is a business risk. My second message is to make better decision, you need a robust and connected model. You need the model to be strong, but also having the model to connect with themselves and with the data. And finally, the last step we are doing with few clients is to build a digital twin, which is basically a model of your mind with all the model integrated together and the data. If you have that, you are better prepared for the wave of challenge that might come. And just to give you a few numbers here about profit and loss based on water risk. Dewatering and pit inflow, you can easily save 10 to 20 million on your dewatering plan if you do a proper job. Slope pit wall stability, just an example, Bingham Canyon was 1 billion of cost of impact. Or water supply, not enough water, like in Chile, Escondida, Los Pelambres. This was 36% less of production in H1, so it's a big impact on the capacity. And they had to invest 3 billion in a desalinization plant just to get enough water to extract the minerals. And if I continue very quickly, Montpoli, TSF seepage analysis, we talk about 70 million to clean up and 25 million of spill. Again, Montpoli is 134 tons of lead and 2.1 tons of arsenic seeping into the ground. So these water risks are huge and consequent. And then they are tied to your reputational and social license as well. So anyway, my point is all of those challenges, they are first water problems before to become financial and money problems. They were first water challenges. And when you plan for a mine, you should think about those issues. And few more numbers, Mariana in San Marco, Brazil, this was 30 billion to fix the problem, just to give some number, plus the death of 19 lives, and Brumadinho was about 270 people who die from the TSF failure, and 7 billion for settlement. So the point is, there are big numbers related with water challenges, lack of monitoring, and of course other reasons, but water was a big chunk of the issues. So the job of DHI is, if you think about the risk matrix, is to move from this part to that part, right? So if you do a proper study, you can decrease the risk of peat inflow and dewatering down to this place. You can decrease the risk of slope and pore pressure analysis down. You can, same thing with the TSF seepage. How can I control better my groundwater impact, surface water impact? So you can de-risk your asset if you have the right team and the right study to get there. So really, that's the goal. And sometimes people think, oh, it's expensive to do hydrogeology, it's expensive to make a model or connect the data. But I just wanted to put this in perspective with the cost of when the problem happened. When you have a real issue, we talk billion. And when we do a model, we talk $100,000 or sometimes $1 million with all the data, all the monitoring in place. But it's still nothing compared to the size of the consequence of not being prepared for the waves. Modeling happens in all the phases of the mine. You can start at the baseline to get the right condition, operation, until closure. And I think I need to move quick for time, so very quickly, but just to give you some concrete vision, this is a fee flow model of a mine in Peru for Las Bambas. So we can, with fee flow, build very detailed geological model integrated into the fee flow model and get an understanding of the dewatering, the pore pressure, seepage analysis. Then we have Mike Shee. Mike Shee help us to actually understand the full catchment, how the surface water and groundwater large scale talk together, and the impact with the spring and river. So very good for environment. And then we have the digital twins, which is really putting all of those models, and I will put on that slide, together in a platform. So that's the final step. You might have a gold seam model, a water balance, sediment model, fee flow model. You put them together in a solution with a dashboard that help you to see the result, make decision, and share the result with the stakeholders, with the government, with the CEO of the company. Okay, so I still have 2 minutes, so it's good. So that's basically the digital twin, the model of your mine itself. And just to finish, I wanted to show you a few examples of our project. So this is in Peru, Constancia. Now it's belongs to Hud Bay. Nice, very complex geology in the Andes, but we're able to predict the environmental impact for the mine. Dewatering optimization, this was for Antamina in Peru. That's a large, one of the largest mines of Peru. And we basically decrease the dewatering cost by 10% compared to the original plan, which was around 10 to 20 million saving. In Sweden, with my partner here, Rodrigo, we just got the permit for the new EIA, and this was mostly Mike Shee and modeling to understand the potential impact and how to mitigate impact on river and spring. And finally, a dashboard we built here with the Mike Mine for a KCC in Congo, which is a Glencore operation, where we connect data and groundwater models together. And now the corporate team in Switzerland, they can connect to that and see how the operation is doing in Congo from Switzerland. So this is all example on how you can get better prepared with your water management at the mine and decrease the risk. So in the end of the day, my message is better model matter because better decision matter. If you want to make better decision, here I believe you are a decision maker, you have high responsibility with your operation. If you want to decide better, you need a better model, a better solution, and behind you to help you to make the right call and put the money where it is actually needed. This help you to model help you to understand. That's the first thing. You need to understand the system, and therefore you can reduce the risk and ask faster. And if you can ask faster, if you know you might have seepage risk, if you know the pressure is high, if you know something is moving which should not be moving, if you can detect those things before, you might save a lot of life and money. If you need to wait the thing to happen to fix it, it will be much more expensive. So I think that my last slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. I think when you mentioned Mike SHE, it piqued the interest and curiosity of our main speaker later, Assistant Secretary Mike Cabalda. So he was wondering. So you should talk to him later. Yeah. Thank you for that very interesting presentation. Our next presenter is Brandon Nang, who will talk on 20% lower transplanting construction's new battery normal in mine sites. Brandon.
6 years ago, 100% of the construction industry in Hong Kong was powered by diesel. Today, over 70% of the construction industry in Hong Kong runs on batteries. And this technology is scaling all around the world. My name is Brandon. I'm one of the founders of Amped Energy. And we are a company that now operates in 9 different countries: Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, the UK, UAE, Saudi, and the US. When we're expanding and looking for what we can do here in the Philippines. How we accomplished this really was by developing battery technologies and battery products that supplant or partner and hybridize with generators for heavy industries. We are now onto our 3rd generation product family, and it was really the 1st generation product line that transformed the construction industry when we launched it in 2019. That product, we had to give it a name. It's lots of energy inside a container, so we called it the Entertainer. I apologize for the very poor choice of name. But the Entertainer revolutionized and continues to revolutionize the modern construction method. It powers over 60% of the building construction industry in Hong Kong today and is scaling all around the world. It is nearly completely silent. Bunch of fans that cool the electronics, and that's it. It's completely automatic. It minimizes diesel hazards on construction sites. It's an IoT-enabled device allowing you to control and operate the device without ever touching it. 85% less CO2 and 0 NOx PM SO2 air pollution. But really, the core idea here is transforming the need for fossil fuels and eliminating or substantially reducing fossil fuel costs. And we really accomplished this by achieving massive cost savings for our clients. That's really what drove the adoption of the Entertainer. I know this is a mining conference, but the Entertainer, our 1st gen product, was really built for the construction industry. There are over 400 Entertainers powering 300 major construction sites live around the world right now. We operate in 9, 10 different countries or regions, depending on the definition of a country. We have avoided nearly 200,000 tons of CO2 and well over 1,000 years of operating uptime. In that time, our products have encountered typhoons, hurricanes, landslides, torrential rain, snow. And because of that, we know we've built an extremely robust product line. And this was our 1st generation product. Oops, I apologize. Really, any construction company in the markets that we operate in are today using our products. You'll see a bunch of names over here, everyone from the internationals to the locals in each of the markets that we operate in. We have a very large presence in Australia as well, where a big number of the Australian clients in the construction industry are now using our products. We really focus on the sort of 100 kilowatt to 5-ish megawatt sort of range. We're not really in the grid scale energy storage side of things. There are a bunch of other players that operate in that space. So really, we're building products that are alternatives to mobile generators as opposed to alternatives to power stations. We're not really in the power station business. So where there's a need for mobile generators in the, call it 100 kilowatt to 5 megawatt space. That's the area that we operate in at Amped Energy. And across mining sites all around the world, we see hundreds, thousands of these generators, especially in our operations in Australia. We are a globally recognized company, and a big chunk of our customers have adopted our products because they've enabled them to tap into green financing, green bonds, green loans. And you know, when you're talking about a $1 billion loan, you know, 10 bips is a lot of money that our products enable you to save. Really, what makes batteries work? I'll talk about the third gen hardware in a second, but I want to touch on software a little bit. Really, what makes batteries work well is the software. And you know, one of the challenges with batteries is the fact that batteries can hit 0%. And once you hit 0%, your operations has to shut down. Now, obviously, that's undesirable. And so software is really the key that enables the hardware to work. Just as software really is the key to making your laptop useful, software is the key to making batteries work. And there's 3 levels of software that we've invested in building a proprietary software stack over the years. Everything from pre-deployment. So before we even deploy a battery, we've modeled the energy needs for any of the operations that we're powering up. And we've already figured out exactly what a battery would do in the next 5 years, 10 years in that operation on the site. So modeling is really important for water. Modeling is also really important for energy as well, to ensure that the batteries never hit 0% at any point during the operations of a mine. Local software is what helps optimize how the battery charges, whether it's charging from solar, charging from the grid, charging from a fossil fuel resource. It enables that the battery system to manage that as efficiently as possible and to ensure, again, that we don't hit 0%. And the cloud layer is what enables our software and our data team and our service team to act if there's anything that could happen to a battery system. And it also helps you understand more about your operations. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But our cloud platform is a class-leading cloud platform called the Internet. Again, I apologize for the poor choice of names in this company. But the Internet is our proprietary cloud monitoring and operations platform that allows you to monitor and control and operate a battery completely remotely. All the data is stored in AWS Singapore, Amazon Web Services Singapore, and it's highly, highly secure. We've got a very robust security framework to ensure that data is secured and protected. But a lot of that data actually provides more insight than you otherwise would have about your actual mining site. Let me give you an example. Every single second, our batteries are telling the cloud, our servers, how much power they're delivering to your sites. And from there, in the cloud, we're running live digital twins of diesel generators. And our digital twins are calculating how much fuel would have been used had that plant or machine been running on a diesel generator. And from that, it's calculating how much fuel has been avoided because of the use of the battery system and how much carbon has been avoided through the use of the battery system. Ordinarily, this would have taken an army of environmental engineers to collect the data, piece it all together, and figure out what it means. We've completely automated that and provided that information in real time. Another example of a feature that we've just launched is Scheduler. This allows you on a Google Calendar or a Microsoft Outlook calendar type interface, it allows you to program remotely exactly what you want the battery to do at any different day, at any different time, on any different day of the week. So you can control, do you want to prioritize solar charging at this hour? Do you want to prioritize, the grid? Do you want to prioritize diesel generators? Do you not want to charge at all during these hours because XYZ reason? So the scheduler provides your team ultimate control of the battery system remotely. We've also built something called our real-time operating status interpretation engine, better known as Rosie. And Rosie is a helper that has been trained. It's an AI model that's been trained on every single one of the service incidents and service tickets generated by our service team. And it now understands what the battery is doing, what its status is. If it needs optimization, if it needs a service, Rosie will then help alert our partners or your team that something needs to be done and some action needs to be taken. And it's all completely automatic. So we have 24/7 AI-based monitoring but we also have 24/7 human support in addition to our AI-based engines. Here's an example of a deployment that we did with one of our partners in Western Australia. This is a Rio Tinto site in the Pilbara. And what we deployed was one of our second generation products, the amped silo. And this amped silo was powering a small mining office. And what our partners deployed a solar system alongside that to charge the battery system with a backup generator there just in case the sun doesn't shine. Over 90% of the energy came from the solar system. Yes, if you've operated in the Pilbara region, it's extremely dusty, it's extremely hot, and the battery system has been operating for 100% uptime over the last year that it's been deployed. The reason why I picked this is because it actually won an award from Rio Tinto, so we're very proud of this deployment. But really, I really want to talk about the hardware that we've just launched last year. It's our third generation product family, the next gen products, and we have the AMP200 and the AMP400P, better names this time that we've picked for the product. And it's been redesigned from the ground up. We've taken everything that we've learned about energy storage systems over the last 7 years that we've been deploying this and redeveloped the product. Really, the core goal was to expand the use cases of our products beyond just construction. So this product is now scaling extremely rapidly in the mining sector, but also in ports, infrastructure, concrete batching, obviously construction and manufacturing as well. And the bedrocks of our third generation product family are the AMP200. And really the core features that set apart the third generation product family are several that enable it to be used very, very effectively in the construction sector. The first, it's fully liquid cooled. So there is no air exchange from the outside to the inside of the product. And what that means is, regardless of how dusty the operating environment is, the battery system will be able to operate in that environment extremely reliably. We've used the latest generation of lithium-ion batteries that are now available. The batteries will now outlast the product itself. So the lifetime of these batteries is extremely long. We've integrated a solar controller into the products that allows plug-and-play compatibility with solar panels. So if you can rapidly deploy those solar panels, plug the 2 wires straight in, and off you go. We're able to natively synchronize and manage diesel generators as well with the third generation product line, and there are other features on top of that. The AMP400 is exactly the same as the AMP200, but 2 of them inside the same container. We've also developed multi-unit paralleling capabilities, and what that means is you can use a single product line, you can pick an AMP200, and you can parallel multiple units together to operate something that's much larger than could have been supported by a single unit. And what that allows you to do is simplify your fleet of assets to a single asset type, which you can scale up and down as you need to, much like Lego bricks when you're building a castle. The next gen family is really built around the idea of providing ultimate energy flexibility by enabling you to charge from any different source, whether it's solar, whether it's the grid, whether it's a hybridized diesel generator, or any combination of that. And where the software is critical is in managing and choosing and optimizing what is most cost effective, what the most cost effective source is at that point in time, while still minimizing the risk of running the battery out to 0%. So that's really where the software and intelligence comes in. Really what we're trying to do is we're trying to build products that are a win for the environment, but a win for the bottom line as well. These are very typical numbers that we see. If we look at a generator, if that's your baseline, from a fuel, OPEX, and CO2 standpoint, if you're hybridizing a battery system with a generator, we're very typically seeing anywhere from 20 to 60% reduction in fuel, OPEX, and CO2. And that will lead to a CapEx payback of 2 to 4 years. If you're using the grid, it's anywhere from a 50 to an 85% reduction in fuel, CapEx, and CO2. with a 1 to 2 year payback. And if you're hybridizing with solar, it's up to a 100% reduction if you have enough space for your solar system, with, again, a very short payback period. So these are very typical numbers that we've seen in both the construction and the mining industry. So that's to wrap up my presentation. I really want to say, thank you for paying attention. We're really trying to address a global issue at Amped Energy. We're looking for partners to create an emission-free future for industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon, for that entertaining and energetic presentation. You spoke about rosé. I just had a rosé on my trip back yesterday on the plane. But thank you again. Our third speaker is Kate Vershinina of SRK. She will be discussing ESG factors in resource and reserves reporting. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate.
Hello, everybody. I have very challenging task to talk about such a subject during 10 minutes. I will do my best, but please forgive me if I will skip something. Happy to answer all your questions after the presentation or during the networking. Sorry, I don't see the slides. Okay. So, reporting codes. In general, reporting codes set up minimum standards and recommendations for public reporting of explorations, targets, and the results, and mineral resource and reserves. The codes have been developed to inform and protect investors, and companies listed on the stock exchanges, such as Australian Stock Exchange or Philippine Stock Exchange, required to report according to those standards. The code development itself was a market reaction on fraudulent reporting practices and cases which took place in the past, such as, for example, Poseidon nickel boom in Western Australia in the 1980s, which caused the development of JOR code, or a famous Brex fraud in Indonesia in the 1990s, followed up the development of the Canadian tool 43101. Currently, there are 16 national reporting codes operating under the umbrella of the CRISCA, which is the International Reporting Committee. And the CRISCA provides the templates and the general guidelines for the national reporting, assuming that the outcomes of this reporting could be comparable, independently of which national jurisdiction the national reporting issued. And also, there are some technical differences between the national codes. All of them are based on the three key factors: is transparency, materiality, and competence. Meaning that the reader of a report is provided with sufficient clear information without misleading statements. That the all information which is important for investors to make their decision about investing into this project is provided, and the reporting is completed by the competent person and supported by the all required experts in the different disciplines. So, starting from the initial exploration drilling, the project is evolving into the estimation of the resources and then reserves. Different studies support this development and increasing in line of the development the confidence in the understanding of the project economy and integrating different factors that contribute overall project successful implementation. Environmental, social, and governance considerations is part of such a development, and understanding of those factors is developing and increasing in line with any other factors. And we can see across the different jurisdictions that historically the role of those factors increasing in both any project evaluation and the resource estimation. At some stage, project coming to the stage when the resources needs to be converted into reserves. And codes require that for that, at least pre-feasibility level study should be available to support the reserves estimation, as this level of study provides the minimum confidence of the project potential economical development. And at this stage, a lot of different factors should be considered in terms of how they can affect the potential economy of the project. And if we're talking in the reporting code terminology, they are becoming considered as a potential modifying factors. So what are the modifying factors? So those are any other factors that can affect the economical extraction of the metal. So basically anything additional to the physical presence of the metal underground understood via the geological study. And those factors can be can affect significantly on economical extraction, and so far the reserves estimation. And those factors are can be classified in different groups. So that can be economical or mining methods of the extraction. That can be a processing scheme, results of the processing and metallurgical testing, infrastructure, this availability and capacity or requirements for the project to construct the project-related infrastructure new. This all legal potential requirements applicable to the project. This is the company's or project initiator rights, tenure, or land access, any governmental expectations, a lot of social factors and the role of the community and how the community supportive on the contrary, what the community perception about the money, if any negotiations with local community took place, and this is the risk of project for the project or not. Marketing, yes, of course. So how the project is, if there is a demand for the project on the market, which was found on the ground. And of course, a wide range of the different environmental factors, which are actually the subject for many other presentations. All of those factors on the stage of the reserves estimation should be considered, because all of them on this stage can affect the how the project is economically attractive for the potential investors. However, while all those factors needs to be considered, not all of them could be characterized as a modifying factors or could affect the reserves estimation, because we're coming back to the initial stage. In this case, the key definition is materiality. What factor is material for the project? That can become the modifying factors. If we're talking about, I have 2 minutes. If we consider the ESG factors, the same principles. Materiality is the criteria. So what is the material factor? Material factors, this information, basically, I will not read, you can read it from the slide. It's the information which can affect the investor decision to invest into the project. That's it. So CRISCA defines what is the factor, what factor could be considered as a material. This is the factor which can stop the project or affect the continuation of operation. That's the factor can result in significant redesign or cause additional cost, or which can pose significant reputation risk or affect the social license to operate. And what is, it doesn't mean that material facts should be considered on the stage of the reserves estimation. Actually, they should be considered from very beginning, because on the very beginning, that could be understood what factors are material for the project. However, they becoming modifying factors on the stage of the reserves reporting. Very important is that material factors, modifying factors, they are very, very project specific. Unfortunately or fortunately, there is no universal list which you can, tick the box against and understand if, check all the modifying factors. They're very, very different. Some modifying factors or material factors which are applicable to one project can be absolutely not relevant to the other, like biodiversity, for example. And very briefly, couple of examples of what could be material ESG factors. It could affect the reserves estimation. First of all, and which I'm quite often see across the different jurisdictions, is mine closure planning and cost estimation. Historically, it wasn't the case, and historically, mining companies didn't pay much attention to that. And while it's often the part of the permitting, and very high-level conceptual closure plan and cost estimation is part of the permitting documentations, it's very seldom when it's actually related to the real real closure cost at the stage of the project development. And when the project is coming to the closure, it's becoming a risk for investor because it requires a lot of investments at the stage when the project already not bringing so much money. And then another one is resettlement, is that not only because of the potential high cost applied for the resettlement of the affected people, but also because the process of the resettlement requires a lot of planning and negotiations, which may take years. And when we can see the resettlement as a potential issue for projects, it's always considered as a very material factor and potential modifying factors. Thank you very much. I try to be quick. So SRK, just few words. SRK Consulting is a technical mining consulting company. We have offices across the world and several offices in Australia. So happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I was glad that you mentioned the Philippine Mineral Reporting Code as being compliant with the CRISCO standards, and we'll have some discussions later, given that I think we have one of the competent persons accredited to do the PMRC. That's Joey Ison here. Our next speaker is Raj Singh from ABB. His topic is ramps to ropes, lifting productivity with mine hoists.
Thank you, Dicky Salazar. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Raj Singh from ABB. Now, I don't want to come between you and your food and drink, so I'm going to make it very quick, right? So, today I want to talk to you about hoists and why hoists are the most efficient and future-proof method for material haulage in underground mining. Now, that allows me to open up a very important question that a lot of underground miners are facing today, which is, when does it make sense to move from ramps to ropes? Now, this isn't about choosing one system over the other. This is really about understanding what is the timing and fit. What works well in early mine life or at shallow depths doesn't always remain the right answer as the mine is going deeper and things are starting to not look so good for the trucks. So my goal today is to show you where that transition point starts to appear, why that point is arriving a lot sooner in many mines than people expect, and why material haulage decisions deserve more strategic attention than they often get. All right, so a very quick overview of ABB and who we are. So we work across the full mining value chain, from automation, where we have our 800XA plant-wide control system that can help you automate your entire process plant, to our digital operations, where we have operations management, advanced process control. This is really about data and analytics and where you're trying to get the most value out of your operations. So we help you with our digital offerings there. Then we have electrification, where we work with miners who have decarbonization initiatives, and they're trying to electrify their haulage fleets. So we have our overhead catenary systems there that allow them to switch from diesel and improve their overall grid to wheel efficiency. We're also developing our next generation DETs, where traditional challenges that come with the OCS systems doesn't allow because of high capex or flexibility on installation. We also have a high capacity, high power charging stations, where we use these robotic arms that connect to your fleet as your fleet is arriving and start charging automatically. Then we do a lot of work around material handling. We have a conveyors, gearless conveyors drives. We have a grinding systems. But the thing I want to focus on today is hoisting, because this is where we see the biggest shift happening as mines are going deeper into the ground and where we can add a lot of value. So the real question that we want to explore is, when do you move from the flexibility of your trucks to the scalability and efficiency of your ropes? So to understand why that matters, we have to start looking at what's happening with our ore bodies. Well, in simple terms, we know that they're getting deeper, lower grade, and more constrained by ESG and cost pressures. What used to work at 300 meters deep and comfortable margins doesn't really hold up at 800 meters and beyond, and with declining margins. What we see is, as the mine gets deeper, haulage cycle times get longer, ventilation demand goes up, energy costs start to go up. At the same time, margins are tightening, so cost per tons becomes very critical. So the fundamental point here is, as Dept changes, it doesn't just increase cost, it actually changes what's technically and operationally viable. And when that happens, material haulage selection becomes a very strategic decision and not just a secondary consideration. So what's the best way to go about making this decision? So material handling decisions are not standalone decisions. We know that. They sit within the chain. We often start with geology, then we look at the mining method, production, and haulage. But that last step, haulage, does have an outsized impact on your mine economics. The right haulage method depends on ore body geometry, mining method, production rate, and depth. And what happens is, when you take a closer look at your ore body geometries, we see a pattern. And the pattern is, the steeper, deeper, and more vertical your ore body gets, gravity starts to favor hoisting more. Why? Because of vertical flow is assisting. And with decline trucking, you have issues with switchbacks, braking, longer haul cycles. When you get larger and bulkier, hoisting again is strongly preferred because it can handle bulk very efficiently. So the key point here is, as you get bigger, deeper into the mine, haulage, hoisting looks very more compelling. Now, these decisions, are not something that as a miner you make at the beginning of the mine life and just set and forget. They can certainly be staged. I actually had the opportunity to sit down with a miner right here in the Philippines, where we discussed, how we can stage these decisions. So they are actually taking a hybrid approach, where they're going with the rams in the initial years, where they do need the fast flexibility. They want to be able to get the ore from the ground and start to generate some cash flow to help with the mine operations. And then the biggest value is created when the transition is planned early rather than retrofitting late. Sorry. So why that's important is, once your haulage architecture is locked in, that decision can shape cost, operational constraints, and ventilation for decades. So what are the realistic haulage choices? Well, broadly speaking, we have these three. We have trucks, conveyors, and mine hoists. Trucks and conveyors, they're very similar in the sense that they both need long haulage tunnels. We spoke about trucks already, but with conveyors, they work very well where it's the right geometry, and when you need continuous overflow, and where you have large scale, very high throughput requirements, such as in the case of block cave mining method. Hoists are very different because they change the concept fundamentally, where you are now moving the haulage, you're removing the haulage tunnels altogether, and you're going and transporting the ore in a vertical environment. So you don't have to worry about congestion, traffic, and also it has a very good impact on reducing your ventilation burden. So we looked at a lot of studies, obviously, people have been doing mining for ages. So we looked at, many studies, and I picked one to show you today, which was done by McCarthy and Livingston in Australia. What this study doesn't argue is shafts are always better than declines. What it does say is that both systems have cost, both change with depth, but declines worsen a lot faster than hoist. So if you look at the graph that you see on the left-hand side, you will see the decline operating cost going from $2 per ton at 200 meters depth all the way to $10 per ton at 1,000 meter depth. So think about it, that's almost a 500% increase. Now hoisting operating cost also increased, but they are very modest. So going only from, in the case of 500,000 tons per annum, $1.50 to just under $2 per ton. So with this, absolute costs have certainly changed when this study was done, but the fundamental relationship between depth and haulage efficiency still remains consistent to this date. And it's also proven by modern trade-off studies that I'll be discussing further. Right, so trade-off studies, as I was saying, most miners today will be doing some sort of trade-off studies. What they do is typically they look at the overall NPV for the life of your mine. They use discounted cash flow models. But when you strip away the individual preferences, they all end up comparing the same set of parameters. So they look at initial cost, operating cost, energy efficiency, safety, scalability, and also ventilation. The thing about ventilation is once you go beyond a certain depth, it stops being a secondary consideration and starts to become a primary design constraint. So with trucks, as we saw, the more deeper it gets, haulage, you have to use more diesel, and also the emissions are cost over there, so you need to get rid of all those emissions, and you need more ventilation for that. Conveyors are different, they're electric, but they have their own issues around routing complexities, transfer points, so you still need a meaningful amount of airflow. Hoist changed the equation because then you have a dedicated system that's transporting ore at a very high speed, and it has a significant reduction in your ventilation burden. Ultimately, the decision comes down to balancing these three factors: sustainability, productivity, and safety. Now, these aren't separate conversations anymore. We know that miners are continuously being asked to increase throughput, reduce emissions, and improve safety all at the same time. So let's talk about safety first. We know, unfortunately, that mining still accounts for the highest number of safety incidents, fatal incidents globally. Some of you may have heard of what happened in China recently, where we lost a lot of humans over there because of an unfortunate incident. So what happens with safety is, when you think about underground mining, trucks cause a lot of distributed movement underground. And when you have a lot of trucks moving, you have more traffic, you have more interaction points. And because of more interaction points, you have more exposure and ultimately more risk. Hoisting changes the equation again by eliminating that and moving the ore movement in a vertical environment. So you don't have to worry about those things anymore. So fundamentally what I'm saying is less distributed movement is equal to less exposure, which ultimately leads to safer operations. Sustainability, we heard a lot from Kate. We know that sustainability is no longer a business issue. It's actually, we've got 2 minutes, sorry, so I'm going to speed it up. So sustainability is very important these days. It impacts permitting, financing, and access to capital. So when you think about material haulage, it's by its very nature, it's very energy intensive. And it does cause a lot of emissions, unfortunately. Hoisting stands out here because it's fully electric, has zero direct emissions, and it can also be powered by renewables. Productivity, again, as you're going deeper, the main thing that you have to worry about is distance. Every additional meter that you go underground, it increases time, increases your, the cycle time of your operations. So if you're using trucks, that can have a significant impact on productivity. With the hoist, you don't have to worry whether you're moving ore from 800 meters deep or 1.5 kilometers deep. it has a very minimal impact on productivity. So if you bring those three themes together, hoisting addresses all three at once. It allows us to make more money, as in generate more revenue. It helps us to reduce emissions because it is fully electric. It also helps us to run safer operations. Coming back to the trade-off, we see that, yes, hoists and conveyors do have higher upfront capital, but they tend to perform very effectively on the longer-term operating costs. So they are very energy efficient. They are lower cost. They have very high safety. They're easy to scale up, and again, it has the lowest ventilation burden, which is the number one thing you have to worry about when you're going deeper in the ground these days. So ABB is not just a supplier of equipment. We aim to partner with you at the early stages of the mine life. As soon as you have finished exploration and discovery and you're starting to develop your mine, we work with you right from the beginning, pre-feed, feed, and all the way to design, build, and operate. We also bring the scale and history with hoisting. We have been around for 130 years. We have 1,000+ installations globally running in 50 countries. And we actually put our first motor back in 1891 on a production hoist in Sweden. We invest a lot in technology as well. We built our first SIL 3 certified system back in 2030. So we provide the full offering from mechanical to electrical components to automation and safety, where we have friction hoist, drum hoist, shaft equipment, certified safety systems, and the whole lot. We bring global expertise and local responsiveness. We are wherever your project is. One of the reasons we are here is because we want to show that we are interested in the Philippines and the mining industry in the Philippines, and if you want to make a contribution. So, and the good thing is we have distribution partners here and also local offices to support the mining sector here. So I think there's a slide missing, but I think I'm almost on time, right? So I want to end with a simple takeaway. So in your early days of mine life, yes, ramps are very important. They're very helpful. They help you generate cash, that you need. But when you consider the long-term impacts, safety, sustainability, they all point to hosting being the better alternative. With that, I want to say thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand over back to Dicky Salazar.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, while you continue to enjoy your lunch, may I ask you for another round of applause for all our speakers for their very interesting and engaging talks. Of course, we invite you nonetheless to take this opportunity to engage with the speakers and ask your questions, even as you enjoy the lunch that we have prepared for all of you. And so we now open the floor for questions. Kindly raise your hands and someone will approach you with a microphone, and kindly identify yourselves. But before that, perhaps I'll ask the questions. And I normally would want to bring, when the luncheon brings over foreign speakers who have kindly visited the Philippines, I'd like to bring the discussion with a more focus to the Philippines itself. And my first question would be for Robin. And you mentioned water management, really. How is climate change altering water management strategies for mines, particularly in the Philippines, for example, where we have more frequent rainfall and prolonged droughts as well? How would you suggest our mining companies deal with this?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think this is a key one, and in reality, all the truth from the past has now changed. So what we see now is those very rare events, what we call let's say 100 years, 1,000-year rain event, start to happen every 10 years now, or every 5 years. And I don't think it's only the Philippines. We see this in Switzerland. We see this in Peru. So I guess at this stage, you need to be aware that you cannot look at the past to predict the future. With climate change, you actually need to think way more conservative and decrease the risk by planning for much more rain, much more, I would say, high rain event, at least. That's what we see in many countries, and it's complicated. So my comment on that is we have models, people that different climate change models, and you need to look at the different options for your country and see, and apply the best one. But in the end of the day, you cannot just look at what we used to do in the past because it doesn't work anymore, and it's created a lot of risk on tailing dams and open pit. Yeah.
Thank you. Perhaps the follow-up question to that would be, how do better models that your company would have translate into day-to-day mine water management issues?
Yeah, I mean, all of our model use basically to predict the potential future in terms of water risk. So the way we use the model, as I said, it's about predicting seepage from the tailing, estimating inflow in the underground mine, in the open pit, and using those models to have a range of potential solutions. And I insist on uncertainty, and also to understand the uncertainty with those solutions. So that's really how you need to look at it. It's a tool to give you a range of solutions so you can plan better.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this point? Yes, please. Please identify yourself. You have
Hello, I'm Adelbert Evangelista. I'm leading the Systems Development Goals initiatives of Terra Klima, and I'm also a Certified Information Systems Auditor. This question is actually to Ms. Kate, particularly in the relationship between SDG and ESG in the project development workflow, because recently our Security Exchange and Commission issued circular about, I have to read here, that companies in the Philippines, all listed companies and unlisted companies in the Philippines must disclose climate, energy, transition, and environmental risks and opportunities. So this is a big one, because I think there are 15,000 companies that will be affected. The first will be those with capitalization of 50 billion pesos by first quarter of 2027, and then the rest will be by 2028 and 2029. This is called the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. And we are particularly concerned with S2, which is disclosing climate, energy transition, and environmental risks and opportunities. So those, and apparently, the biggest that will be affected are mining companies.
okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So, in general, I can say that that's nice follow up with the previous comments, is that the climate change disclosures developing around the world. So it's not only the Philippine issues. You know, all the world is increasing the requirements for the climate change disclosures as a part of the general business disclosure and the part of the financial disclosure, exactly because the climate change recognized as a source of the financial risks for the company. So the investors would like to know if the company assists their risks related to climate change, if the company understands the risk, what the company is going to do with all of that, and how much it will cost for investors. And that's what the financial disclosure of the climate-related risk about. And yes, that's a big job. This will be relevant for a lot of companies, a lot of mining companies, but that's part of the international, now part of the international market, and that will come.
Apparently, It's not only reporting, they need also evidence.
Sorry, say it again.
It's
They need evidence to.
Evidence of what?
of the
Evidence.
disclosure.
Oh, well, there are disclosures internationally. There are disclosures like in Australia. It's already requirements which are applied and which is already going. Yes, it's usually applied in stage. It will not actually start like being implemented in one day. It's usually as a stage approach applied and they requiring the disclosure, in the beginning from the very big companies and the the smaller companies coming later. It will be, I believe, some transitional period, but yes, that's there are a lot of evidence in different jurisdictions how it's done.
Yeah, the reporting for Philippines will start on 2027. So I think, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Brandon, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think adding to that, it's not just the fact that there is reporting, but the reporting is really for capital markets, right? The capital markets are looking at this and scrutinizing this. Regulators are as well. And really, it's not just the fact that there is reporting, but the quality of the reporting is also extremely important, but also extremely varied. And what we're seeing is companies that have higher quality reporting have access to lower cost capital, preferential terms on capital, and so it's increasingly becoming core to a business, right?
I can add that what we call the good quality reporting. It just means that investors get the better information and that's decrease their risks. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's encouraging that the Philippine government is shifting towards a lot of those requirements that would comply with international standards as well. Brandon, while you're at it, you're in your talk earlier. I saw a shift or a suggestion to shift from diesel to your batteries, and especially in the time in the Philippines where diesel costs are rising, right? So I don't know how efficient would your product be in a very tropical country like the Philippines. Have you taken that into consideration?
Yeah, so AMT operates in quite a few different regions now. We have operations in Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, the UK, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, the US, and the US includes very tropical parts of the US. We have a fairly similar climate between Hong Kong and Philippines and Singapore and the Philippines. We get the typhoons that you guys get here. Our batteries have been built to survive all of those. The heat that we see in the Middle East, I mean, it's much higher than we get over here. The humidity, the salt air that we see on the coastlines of the Philippines and in Australia. So really, all of this has been built into the design of the products. When we designed the products 8 years ago, we're now onto the third generation of our product family. So these are issues that we've already dealt with for many years, and these are not really issues that we really are too concerned about.
Okay, thank you. And well, perhaps one of the issues of mining companies is reliability of products, right? How reliable would your products be, and how what standards are there to ensure this reliability?
So we go way above any of the compliance standards that exist around the world. I mean, a lot of it is based around IEC and UL. They tend to focus very heavily on safety as core parts, but reliability is key, not just in mining, but all the industries that we serve: construction, mining, oil and gas, ports. And really how we've built reliability into our products is through modularity. All of our products internally already have redundancy. Battery systems are made up of lots of battery modules and inverter modules. I'm sure ABB knows that very well. And all of these modules are redundant. So even if a single module fails, very often it doesn't take down the whole system. The system continues operating. And what we do is a notification is then sent to our service team or the service team of our distribution partners, and action is then taken to ensure that full performance of the product is restored, typically before the site has even noticed anything has happened.
That's very encouraging. Thank you. perhaps the follow-up question to that would be, how environmentally friendly would your battery systems be?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussion on what is the environmental footprint of producing batteries right off the bat, and obviously that's something that we have started, that we've studied years ago, and we found that indeed a typical battery that we produce has about 20 tons of carbon more than a diesel generator that we would typically replace. But typically, the carbon reduction of our products is in the order of about 200 tons per year. So the payback, the carbon payback for a battery system is in the order of 2 to 3 months. And that's simply because diesel is extremely carbon intensive. So that switch from either from diesel to no diesel or diesel to less diesel pays off extremely quickly from a carbon standpoint, but also an economic and a commercial standpoint as well.
Thank you. Raj, if I may ask you on the talk that you had, there are claims that hoisting is often described as the heartbeat of the mining system. We have a couple of mining projects here, Apex Mining and Oceana, who are into underground mining. I was wondering where you see as the greatest advantage and productivity gains would there be if a mining system, a mining company undergoes the hoisting system or product that ABB has?
Thank you, Dicky. So we spoke about productivity in my presentation, right? So when you install a hoist in your mine site, and you have obviously done the study and you've come up to a conclusion that based on the annual tonnage that you want to get out of the mine, from the ground, bring it to the surface and process it and get value from that ore. So it becomes the heartbeat, like you rightly said, of your mine, because if it goes down, then you basically can't bring anything to the surface. So how do you then manage the risk? And which is why what ABB does is we have come up with SIL 3 certified safety and control systems. So you have the redundancy built in. On top of that, we're putting advanced analytics on your hoist, where we are not only monitoring the shaft equipment, but also the hoisting system itself. And we are using things like predictive analytics. So doing condition monitoring of your equipment. So if something bad was happening, the system can detect early on and then alert the people, so you can send cavalry rather than having for the system to go down. So that's how we handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if mining companies are urged to shift towards electrified or battery trucks, even battery systems, does that remove the advantage of having a hoisting system?
That's a terrific question, and something people will often ponder. Does the electric battery trucks that I was showing that ABB does with companies like Komatsu and others, does that take the advantage away of hoisting? And the answer is very simple. Electrification does have its advantage. It does reduce the diesel emissions, no doubt, but it still doesn't change the underlying physics of the situation. As you're going deeper, you still have the longer haul cycles, right? You still have congestion issues. You have all these problems. You still need to manage, even with the battery trucks, the heat and the ventilation demand that's going to come. In Australia, we have a legislation coming up where the diesel particulate matter, it's going to be reduced by a factor of 10. So going from 0.1 to 0.01. Now think about that. That's going to put immense burden on your ventilation requirements. So the best way to do that or manage it is still with a hoist, especially if you're going deeper and you've reached your transition point.
Thank you, Raj. Kate, there have been claims that the shift to ESG reporting is in a way greenwashing. How do you address that? And has ESG really changed the way that mining companies approach reporting and mine closure, or is it just a way of changing the way they communicate?
Well, greenwashing is actually becoming the serious issue because the first boom of the sustainability reporting caused a lot of a wave of the what is now mentioned that the bad quality reporting, where the company actually provided the market and investors just statements which were not underpinned but reality on the ground, which is basically what is the greenwashing is. It's a little bit changing now because that's after the first wave of this reporting, that's understanding came that that's something which should be proved. And now that's the accent is more to the like a reality check from the nice statements of the public reporting towards the ground. So could you please demonstrate me how your nice statement is actually realized on the ground? And that will become more and more expected from the companies to prove and to be more careful about what they're saying in their sustainability reporting.
Thank you. I understand in the Philippine Mineral Reporting Code, discussions about ESG is an optional topic. I was wondering if this would still be consistent with the international standards, the optionality in it.
It's not optional. In Philippine code, it's not optional.
Okay.
It's a little bit different formulated rather than other codes, but it's not. In some statements, it's even more specific than joke, for example.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rick Peregrino. I'm the Chief Strategic Officer for Frontier Services Group out of Hong Kong. We're lucky. Ni hao ma. We're lucky. We own our own things. We own our own aviation, our own shipping, our own trucking. However, we find that many of our clients, which are mainly public-private partnerships, still fail to hire experts like you guys through the whole cycle of the mining operation. So we start entry all the way to closure. So my question for you guys is what are mining companies and mining conglomerates failing to do to mitigate risk operationally through the entire life cycle? We're lucky because we use the Weihan energy system in the DRC and Nigeria and even in South Africa. So, what is it as a panel you guys would say to us to really focus on from the beginning, the water side, all the way to the closure of your mining operation? And thank you so much.
Thank you. Perhaps we'll start with you, Robin.
Yes, well, good question. I think from the water side, the key thing we see, which is missing, is the monitoring at the baseline of at the exploration stage. So before you open a mine, in many cases, there is a lack of information, monitoring information about quality, and this become an issue during operation because then the mining company are not able to demonstrate that maybe the river was already impacted before the mine arrivals, this kind of thing. So I think what we see in many cases is baseline is not properly done. And just because of that lack of investment on the early days of the mine in the water aspect, it generated a lot of costs until closure. And then the other big one is closure. Same issue during operation. Mining don't invest enough in planning the closure, and closure can cost way more than expected, and it's a liability that you will have to carry on for 20, 30, 50 years later down the road. So that's basically my message is we should invest more before and not wait to decrease cost later on the water side.
Brandon, would you like to add something?
Yeah, for power and energy, it's really it's what we're not seeing in the mining sector is just people asking for it, right? And so it's an awareness thing that there are now alternatives to diesel increasingly available. So I think a big part is simply asking if there's a diesel alternative, because that can substantially reduce operating cost variability in this highly volatile geopolitical world. We're here with our partners, Aboitiz Construction. Simply ask, what are the non-diesel options that are available? and you'll be surprised. Everything from batteries to electric trucks to electric haulers to hoists, they're increasingly available and increasingly the more commercially attractive option. Ask.
Thank you. Raj?
Yeah, so thank you. That was a great question. From a life cycle perspective, right, you have few things to worry about. And hopefully you should be taking care of all of them during your study phase. So if I could reframe the question is, if you're asking me this during feasibility, then you're on time. If you're asking me, let's say during construction, you're already too late, right? So from a haulage perspective, one of the mistakes we see that people often make is they lock in the haulage decision way too early. And all they look at is the upfront capital, and they fail to consider the long-time life cycle cost or the life cycle value of it, right? So the key would be just consider, engage with suppliers early, engage with consultants early, hash out, all your requirements, look at your life of mine, and then make the decisions from there.
Kate?
In terms of the ESG factors, again, that's I would say that what can make the life of the operators easier is to understand on the early stage what is the material for the project, and concentrate the efforts on the decreasing the risks for those factors, and actually let other factors being managed as a common operational practice. But when we are talking about the closure, that's interesting you mentioned that, because the concept of mine for closure is now more and more popular. So basically it means that when you design the project, think about closure, and design your operational activities and the methods you're applying and the schedules you're applying, and integrating the progressive rehabilitation into your mine plan, which will decrease the pressure of the closure liabilities and costs at the very end of the project, which is critical for the project economy. And actually, just thinking about the potential closure outcomes may really require from the project designer a little modification of the project design or a little modification of the schedule, but it can dramatically change the overall profile of the project economy at the end.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Hi, good noon for Mr. Robin. Can you please share with us if somehow in your groundwater concern, if you have incorporated any geospatial technology?
Yeah, it's a good question. So definitely, I did not have time in 10 minutes to show that, but all the models start with what we call the conceptual model and geological model. So we typically build could be a leapfrog or geomodeler model, a 3D geological model with all the necessary geospatial information into a first 3D model, and then we will translate that model into a groundwater model. So that it's very important to start first with the data, borehole, drilling, and of course the mapping or the geological work, and then you put that in a 3D model, geological model, and then once you are happy with that and the geologists are happy with that, then you can move into a groundwater model. So it's fundamental to have the geospatial data into it.
Thank you for your question. Joey will probably have you as the last question.
Joey Aison. I'd just like to clarify on the Philippine reporting code. It's a PMRC 2020. So when we're crafting that, it's about 2018, 2019. So ESG was not really that significant as of the time. So when we place ESG as part of the code, it was still something like not mandatory. But now we're trying to revise that code again. Since at that time, JORC was still JORC 2012. And PMRC was already well advanced of JORC, and we're PMRC 2020. Just a clarification on the ESG provisions of PMRC 2020.
Yeah, what I mean actually is that it's not over. Well, it cannot be like a name that ESG, requirements for the code, but any requirements in the code which relate to the permitting, for example, That's part of the ESG. No, with requirements to disclose any information about potential environmental constraints, that's still ESG. ESG is too wide, so it's not really requirements to have the title ESG under the code to actually report under that.
Yeah, thank you for your clarification and Kate's clarification as well. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll close the question and answer portion of our program today. And we again thank our speakers for their very insightful and message-driven presentations. And we'll give them a chance to have lunch. Thank you again. May we have a round of applause for the speakers. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the much anticipated and awaited keynote speech, I would like now to introduce our main speaker. He is Assistant Secretary Michael V. Cabalda. He is the Assistant Secretary at the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. He's a licensed mining engineer and a seasoned environmental strategist with more than 4 decades of experience in the mining industry. Throughout his distinguished career, he has played a key role in addressing mining policy and operational challenges with particular expertise in safety and health, environmental management, social performance, and sustainable mining practices across all phases of the mining life cycle. He is widely recognized for his work in sustainability reporting, ESG initiatives, biodiversity management, small-scale mining, and towards sustainable mining (TSM) program of the Chamber of Mines. And engineer Asec Cabalda is an accredited competent person for mining engineering and a TSM verification service provider, reflecting his commitment to advancing responsible and sustainable resource development. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the department's innovative introductions at this point, please join me in warmly welcoming Assistant Secretary Michael V. Cabalda.
Thank you, Attorney Dicky, for a very generous introduction. None of them are true. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a good lunch and you would be interested to listen to a regulatory part of this session, from an operations to a government speech. And this is supposed to be a speech coming from the Secretary. I've been asked to read this one for you and explain what's happening with the department. The title of this particular presentation is Responsible Minerals Development, Sustainability, Innovation, Environmental Stewardship, and the Future Direction of the Philippine Mining Industry. These are no longer aspirational terms. They are now the operating conditions in the Philippines of a mining sector. It's okay. Because mining today is not judged only by extraction volumes, but what it enables. Energy transition, infrastructure, industrial supply chains, and national development. And equally, by how responsibly it is done. And when we say responsible minerals development, we are really describing a shift from resource extraction alone to performance under rising expectation from us regulators, investors, communities, and the global markets. What I will walk you through is a straightforward actions that are being done by my department. But first, I need to show you the clear context about. If you look at this slide, the message is simple. The development context around mining has fundamentally changed. Mining is no longer discussed only as a commodity extraction. It is now directly linked to climate action, energy transition, infrastructure development, digital technologies, secure supply chains, and most recently, AI. For government, this creates both opportunity and responsibility. The opportunity is for the Philippines to participate more meaningfully in future-oriented mineral value chains. The responsibility is to ensure that development is done with strong safeguards, transparency, and real benefits for communities and the country. Now, today, markets expect traceability. Investors demand ESG, performance, governments align mining with climate and industrial policy. So the opportunity is real, but it is conditional. The key point is this: mineral endowment alone is no longer sufficient. Governance and performance now determine access to opportunity. And this brings me to the DENR's position itself on this environment. Now, the DENR's position is clear. We support responsible minerals development, but within a defined rules and science, environmental and social boundaries, and accountable performance. And let me be direct. We are not operating under a stop mining framework, but we are not also operating under anything goes framework. What we are building is a system where mining is enabled, but only when it is compliant, responsible, and socially defensible. So when we talked about balance, it is operational and not rhetorical. Compliant projects are facilitated, non-compliant projects are corrected or constrained, standards are applied consistently. From an industry standpoint, this matters because predictability in enforcement reduces regulatory risk over time. Then that leads me to this position as reflected in a day-to-day regulatory action. So the current direction of this department moves along two tracks: faster action and stronger accountability. Faster action does not mean weaker safeguards. It simply means improving processing efficiency for compliant applications. At the same time, stronger accountability means that approval comes with clear expectation. Work programs must be implemented, environmental and social commitments must be delivered, results must be measurable on the ground. In short, facilitation where there is compliance, firmness where there is deviation. Faster government action also requires faster industry performance in return. This slide tells you what's happening within during the watch of this current acting secretary, Attorney Juan Miguel Mitch Cuna. This is actually an old slide. And if you look in the only last 3 months that he's in the office, he has already approved so much in terms of EP. But that is May. Today is June. And that numbers have risen already. As far as the EP is concerned, we have already approved 21 EPs. Mabilis po kami ngayon. Mabilis din kaming bumawi. Okay? So, the numbers alone do not define performance. The real measure is whether government action is clear, timely, fair, and accountable, and whether responsible projects can proceed without unnecessary delay while maintaining full compliance with technical, environmental, and social safeguards. That is why sustainability is not a separate requirement. It is the operating standard. So sustainability is not something added after approval. It must be embedded across the entire mining cycle, from exploration up to post-mining land use. This means decisions must be grounded on or in science-based assessment, environmental safeguards, mine safety and health standards, community engagement, rehabilitation planning, continuous compliance monitoring. Projects are therefore evaluated not only on technical and economic viability, but also on environmental stewardship, social acceptability, and long-term accountability. For responsible operators, this reflects good practice. No? What is changing is visibility and scrutiny. Performance is now more closely tracked across stakeholders, which brings us to transparency. Probably, globally, trust in mining is increasingly data-driven. It is no longer enough to assert compliance. Hindi na pwede po yung ginawa ko to. It must be demonstrated. So the proposed National Transparency Hub, which is actually the pet project of the current secretary, reflects this direction. It is envisioned as a platform for environmental monitoring data, rehabilitation progress, SDMP updates, verified compliance reports, public-facing project implementation information. And yesterday, some of you were in MGB, we launched the Lobby Museum, MGB Lobby Museum, and the Mining and Geology Information Portal. This activity reflects our commitment to transparency, accessibility, and innovation in public service. The museum showcases the story of our country's geological heritage, from the processes that shape our land to the mineral resources that support national development. Through the portal, the Mining and Geology Portal, users can now access reliable information on geology, mineral resources, mining tenements, companies, seize information. Malapit na po natin ito makumpleto. We just need, we're actually working with the Canadian government to get us this sophisticated software being handled by Pacific Geotech. And this will be a subject, I think, of the presidential discussion during his visit by the president in Canada this coming July 1 to 6. So the objective is not only communication, but verification. Transparency strengthens accountability, reduces this misinformation, and allows performance to be assessed on the basis of evidence, not perception. Innovation is now part of governance, not just operation. The regulatory system is becoming more complex. Without systems, complexity creates delay and inconsistency. Digital tools, data systems help address this by improving how government receives application, evaluates technical data, tracks compliance, validates field conditions, and issues decisions. This includes integrating geoscientific data, environmental baseline, and monitoring systems into the regulatory workflows. The goal is not just faster processing, but more credible, consistent, and defensible decision. Importantly, innovation must also reach the field level. And I mean small-scale mining. And this is where the Mobile One-Stop Shop, or MOS, comes in. This is a new initiative taken by MGB and the DENR targeting our small-scale miners. So the MOS, it is a field-based reform initiative for small-scale mining communities. Instead of requiring miners to navigate multiple agencies from afar, MOS brings government services directly in the field. We provide regulatory guidance, technical assistance, and market linkages support. BSP attends those legs. Landmark is there. Name all of those agencies involved in mining. They are part of this particular initiative. As of May of 2026, we already have trained over 1,000 miners with certification issued by DOLE and all other government agencies. contracts, which have these interim small-scale mining contracts, which have been very difficult to get. We have just issued about 58 service contracts. And when we had a chance to make a presentation in Malacanang, we estimated that one contract, if done properly, would be able to earn something like 500 million pesos a year. Right now, the gold that's being sold has increased. I don't have the figures now, but it's coming into the central bank. The objective is not only regulation, but gradual formalization. Can you imagine all our small-scale miners now being able to go out and register, proclaiming that they are small-scale miners? Unlike before, they've been hiding. But in fact, when we were discussing this particular event, the biggest challenge that we had was, how can we convince them to join when they have been doing it for the last 10 years? Being able to smuggle out the gold out of the Philippines. That was the biggest challenge. And to our surprise, they were also open to be part of a regularization program. Now they can sell their gold straight to central bank with that particular contract that we issued, an interim small-scale mining contract, which they need to complete within the 2-year period. They need to complete the entire requirement within 2-year period. But with one contract, they're now able to sell. Our next rollout is scheduled in Cordillera. Again, that is where small-scale miners are. And I'm hearing that they're willing to sell something like 2 tons of gold during our leg. I don't know how we're going to pay for it. Our central bank is going to do that part. Now, we've coined something like a mineral diplomacy, primarily because we wanted to have a handle on what we're doing in terms of partnerships with different agencies. Mining is now globally integrated. Capital, technology, and markets are interconnected. For the Philippines, partnerships are not just about attracting investment. They are about improving capability across exploration, processing, potential environmental management, rehabilitation, skills development. The Philippines have had MOUs and MOAs with the US, Japan, Korea, and the UK with the British Geological Survey, and discussions with the Canadian government, Germany, and Netherlands, and working closely with the development partners such as ABB, the Intergovernmental Fund, Intergovernmental Forum, IEA, and UNEPS. They're all in the works. We're really having this, we call mineral diplomacy, in the absence of a better terminology. But the key point is this: partnerships matter only if they improve real outcomes. Better projects, better compliance, and better value creation on the ground. A partnership should support national capability, responsible supply chains, and domestic value creation. So the future of the Philippine mining must be anchored on responsible value creation. This means moving beyond extraction alone toward a broader development model that includes responsible exploration, value adding, and processing where viable, technology transfer, circular economy practices, credible rehabilitation, and transparent performance. Ultimately, the sector will be judged not only by what it extracts, but by what it leaves behind and what it enables. So in closing, let me close this with the question is no longer whether mining will exist. It already does, and it will remain essential. The real question is whether the sector can meet the standards that define global competitiveness today, and we've heard from the previous speakers. For the Philippines, this is an opportunity, but a conditional one, and it depends on alignment between development, responsibility, transparency, and accountability. For industry, this is not only compliance, it is also risk management, investment security, and market access. Because in the end, mining will be judged by extraction alone. Mining will not be judged by extraction alone, but by whether it created value without leaving an acceptable cost behind. Government, industry, and communities can align on this direction. Mining will be recognized not just as an extractive sector, but as a credible contributor to national development and global supply chain. Thank you. Maraming salamat po.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Big round of applause for the very encouraging messages of Assistant Secretary Cabalda. We open the floor to questions. The same format. Please identify yourselves. Thank you, Secretary, for the message. And it is really encouraging to note the significant developments that the department has generated over the last 3 months since the new Secretary, Mitch Kuna, has taken over. I think one of the recurring questions is whether or how does the DNR balance the interest really of host communities, indigenous peoples, local governments, investors, and the mining companies and national development when these interests would sometimes conflict.
Essentially, we're guided by the principle that we're all in this particular business and everybody needs to be part of it. No one needs to be left behind. With that in mind, you would be able to discuss with them things that are not that very difficult to discuss, especially with the NCIP. They always have that paradigm of having all of these lands are ours. But we've talked to them in some ways that they're very, very open to developing their areas for as long as it's clear what benefits they're going to get. And these are the things that we're trying very, very hard to really develop. The skills of negotiation. Technical people like me would have difficulty doing that part, so we have social scientists working for us. The LGU is something that we hopefully can deal with some encouragement coming from the top. And as you all know, Attorney Dicky, we're coming up with an executive order that would now put all government agencies aligned towards one direction, supporting the industry and develop the industry so that it becomes a crucial pillar in our economic development. And that particular executive order is now with the Office of the President, and we're hoping that that would be part of what he will be discussing when he visits Canada and be part of SONA. That's just my wish. No, I'm not saying he's going to sign it or approve it. I'm just saying, and I'm hoping that that will be what will happen in the next couple of days.
Thank you. You spoke about the executive order that will hopefully come out, and just linking that back to the earlier discussions on ESG. I was wondering whether that executive order would also touch on ESG compliance by mining companies?
Very much strong on that part, primarily because we wanted to get international standards applied within our mining industry. Because that is the only way out of this. When you look at the global situation, let me take the case of Indonesia, for example, wanting to apply for the MSP, that Mineral Strategic Partnership that was led by the US. A very stringent component of the MSP was on ESG. So that is where, in fact, Indonesia was failing. Philippines was granted an observer status primarily because we claim that we have actually a green policy. We have a green metal. Because at the very onset, when we plan our mining, we plan, in fact, how to close it. It's like a cradle-to-cradle philosophy that we have. So from day one, we're planning in terms of the exploration, making sure that we are aware of what is going to be into the ground and that we talk to the communities themselves. In the Philippines, we have what we call the Community Development Program under the exploration stage. That is very unique in terms of the Philippine side. When you are operating, we now have what we call the Social Development and Management Program, a prescriptive regulation that requires mining companies to allocate 1.5% of their operating costs dedicated for the upliftment of your host and neighboring communities. And the planning is actually coming from the communities, not from government. They're the ones dictating what projects should come into their place. So those are the things that we are coming in with, and in fact, we're now reviewing the DAO on RA 7942, especially strengthening its provisions on environment. Of course, part of the review would be further streamlining the permitting process. So we aim to have at least, originally in the permitting before the revisions that we had, EPs and other permits gets to be approved. If you guess it, some of you are here already, you know it's about 10, sometimes 10 years. With this streamlining that we did, we have reduced that number to 11 months, granting that the proponent have the proper documentations that they have. Now, if and when we're able to address the issues with the NCIP and the LGU, that could be shortened to even less than 11 months. So we're working on that part. We're closely negotiating and talking with the National Commission on Indigenous People and the LGU. And that executive order that I mentioned would provide the basic, how do you say it, legal arm for us to get everybody aligned. Work is like a total government approach. Everybody aligned towards using our natural resources for the betterment of the Philippines.
Thank you. Indeed, I think it's often been a problem encountered by those that have been granted permits that despite the issuance of the DNR MGB of the permits, the actual implementation is met with problems from the local government units that still issue their own resolutions on no mining or ban mining in their localities, and that's the challenge. And we're encouraged by your statement that you're doing steps to address this. And perhaps the other question would be that in relation to environmental stewardship, which is becoming a competitive advantage for mining companies. And the question would be how the DNR is dealing with this and encouraging also or insisting that this be complied with by mining companies.
Well, the implementing rules of RA 7942 expressly provides that the environment should be given due attention. And right now, we're working on, in fact, looking at adopting a part of towards sustainable mining parts of it, because we are not able to adopt them as a whole, because it has to be a government and private sector cannot, I think, have that kind of an agreement. So we're just picking up some of the niceties that we see with the TSM. So the direction as far as MGB and DNR is concerned is really towards global standards as far as the environment and the social part is concerned.
Thank you. At this point, we'd like to entertain questions from the floor, if there are any. Now, Joey is prepared now.
Joey, nasagot ko na, dapat di ka na magtanong.
Just a couple of questions, Asec Mike.
The mic is there.
First of all, MOS, one-stop shop, mining for small-scale miners. What if small-scale mining operations is within your MPSA or your EP, and then can that be? Do we have to give our consent, or like it's an EP and we have not yet worked on that part of the area, so that could be disadvantageous to the tenement holder.
I mean, that's a question being asked of us in almost all the forum. My take is this: if you have been granted a permit or a right over an area, and you have been exercising that right diligently, then you have every right not to allow a small scale mines to be put in your area. But the question is, if you've been sitting on your MPSA or your EP, we will ask you to explain why you're not doing it. So we will allow for small scale to come in.
Most probably the reason would be it's a whole area and we're consolidating the data so that because once you grant small scale mining permit in part of your EP or MPSA, that would sterilize that zone and you would not be able to use it during your actual operation. So that's probably the reasons why it's not yet been or it's not part of your DMPF while you're preparing it.
But we already have in the Philippines a successful model. The model is there. No? Luis Sarmiento is the father of your
Big brother,
big brother, small brother scheme. So that is something that we can work with as far as working with small scale and the big ones. What we're looking at right now is essentially trying to come up with a policy that would graduate small scale to a medium scale. Because we feel that somehow, if you've been a small scale miners for a long time, you've already gathered all the experiences. What would prevent you from moving into a higher grade like a middle or medium scale operators? So that's something that we're now trying to determine whether that would be a feasible policy as far as government is concerned.
Okay, I think second question is so you mentioned earlier that we're all in this together, we're partners. What's the possibility of MGB or DNR going with the private entity when you help explain because to the locals? Because usually when they ask you something and you said, "Oh, we have a valid permit," it would be self-serving. But if somebody from government tells you that these guys have a valid permit, contract with the government, so all of the legals are there. So it would help that somebody from government is also with the company to do part of their IEC.
Even while the executive order has not yet been signed, some of you would have experienced that our RDs would join you in your visits to local governments. I've seen some of them, like Sok Garlan, joining I think Makilala to explain what the project is all about. Now, in terms of the executive order itself, it explicitly provides that all mining projects are actually government projects. And now, essentially, it tells government to be the one explaining what the project is all about because you guys will now be our contractors. That is the beauty of this new executive order. We will be with you in explaining to the local governments, to the NCIP and all the others, what the project is all about and why government is pushing for such a project.
Thank you. Any other question, please? Yeah, Robin? Yeah.
Thank you. Great presentation. I was just curious about the data portal. What mechanism you have to basically have mining operators to share the data with the government? Is there a process? Because I know in some countries it's quite complicated to have that kind of, let's say, playing together, sharing the data in one team.
We are the repository of all of this information in terms of mining and geology. It's just a matter of us being able to come up with a system that would allow everybody to have a look-see in a transparent way. Now, mining companies are required by law to provide us all of your exploration reports. So that can be part of the work that will be placed in that portal.
Yep.
Now you can, those that visited yesterday, we actually tried it. In fact, as an example, we looked at Apex mining of President Louis, and we just clicked on it, and the entire information in terms of the tenement are there. And we're moving forward to make it part of a permitting system by way of this mining cadastral and tenement process that Pacific Geotech has. It was showcased to us one time, and we were just so amazed that it can do so much. And that, in fact, if and when it gets to be delivered and developed in the Philippines, it would free most of our technical people. Less people involved in the permitting because just you typing in what you want to do, where you want to go. It will tell you whether the area is open or closed, whether it is within a protected area or an NCIP area. Those are the things that will happen as far as that portal is concerned.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other question? Secretary, if I can direct the question in respect of mine closures. No? Mining in the Philippines has been challenging in the sense that certain projects have not been able to efficiently do mine closure. May we know what the DNR MGB standards are now, given those legacy projects, as we may call them, in respect of mine closure?
Okay. As far as the legacy mines are concerned, we now have, those are the mines that closed prior to Republic Act 7942. Before it was meant to be addressed by rehabilitation. But because of this demand for critical minerals, we're revisiting most of these abandoned mines, but we're checking whether we are able to get more elements from all of those mine waste and tailings just lying there. You know, if and when we are able to process, can you imagine? That's like manna from heaven because you don't have to drill and grind because they're already grinded. It's just a matter of getting the correct process to be able to get those elements out. Now, do we have a standard at this point in time? I dare say yes. And in fact, for the first time, we have granted one company a final relinquishment, and that's the Rapu-Rapu mine in the Bicol area. I personally have a stake in that particular company. You know why? Because I was the one who closed it during the time when there was an incident. I forget the year it was. And then I also was one of the person that says we can reopen it after they were able to complete what we have recommended them. We were there on site, by the way. The entire year, MGB was there in and out, making sure that they're doing what we have recommended them to do. And then, you know, I also left government and then came back. Part of the job that was given to me was determining whether we could relinquish that particular area. Several directors before me would not like to touch it, you know. And I said there has to be a decision, and we did, because of my understanding and knowledge of the area. I know where the tailings pond is. I know where the wine waste is. I know all of those things. So when I went there, I could not even find the tailings. The tailings dam has been, I would say, entombed. The open pit has been widened to ensure that it doesn't collapse, and those materials have been put back in the pit. So the pit is not the deep pit, but essentially like an ordinary valley. So we had no recourse but to say, thank you, John Lee of LX. Stand up to be recognized. He has a 7-year-old tree there. So yes, we have a standard. We have a form that we will check. And if companies pass that one, if I'm still there, we are so willing to relinquish you from your obligations.
Thank you. In your talk earlier, Secretary, you spoke about mineral Asec future. You spoke about mineral diplomacy, and that involves cooperation with various governments. You and I were together in a couple of visits to Australia, and Louisa Rust here, the Australia Trade Commissioner, is present. But I didn't see in the list Australia, so I was wondering why it was
Blame it on
excluded. Louisa, any thoughts about it? Because Australia has been a consistent supporter of the Philippine mining industry.
Thanks, Dicky. I love being put on the spot. But I did notice that Australia was not on there. We have had a lot of collaboration, and recently the Assistant Secretary went to Australia, supported by Department of Foreign Affairs to Western Australia. But we're working on a number of projects at the moment, and I hope that we will be featuring on the presentation next year. So there's plans.
Thank you.
You guys, I'm really very surprised because I don't know what happened. Many countries are just coming to our offices and asking whether they can do an MOU with me with the Philippines, especially on critical minerals. Very surprised. It never crossed my mind that the U.S. will be so so bullish and getting everybody involved. They're even asking a fellow from MGB to go to the US for a 1-month training on supply chain. And they're looking at all the projects, asking us for at least 10 shovel-ready projects that they can invest on.
So what is your answer to the 10 shovel-ready projects?
Not yet there.
Thank you, Luisa, and we look forward to better and longer engagement with the Australian government and the Philippine government. You spoke about portals. So I was wondering, Secretary Asec, what cybersecurity and data security measures is the DNR MGB embarking on to possibly address portal issues?
We're very conscious about that part, and we have a dedicated team within the DENR. It's called KISS, like the rock star, right? They're the ones dedicated to ensure all of our systems are protected. Of course, the DITC, sorry, is right on top of all of this. They're the ones.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Yes, DHI. About portals again, and so Robin asked earlier, and you also answered about these tenements that you were able to perhaps in the future have that accessible to the mining companies and to basically to the public. Do you see as well like the environmental aspects being also available for them to see, like what's the water quality around the mining areas, for example? Is that something that you see as being part of this portal as well?
It is active. It's what I said earlier, that even companies, DCs, the tenement, safety, health, and environment are there. Okay. All the monitoring reports will be uploaded in that. But some reports which is covered with confidentiality will not be there, like exploration reports that has not yet matured into like an operating mine. They would have to be protected by the confidentiality they signed with us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Please.
Yeah. Adelbert Evangelista from Terra Clima. My question is actually about anti-mining groups. Are they still persuasive and influential? And how is DNR dealing with them?
Oh, there's nothing we can do when we talked about NGOs that are ideological in their approach. Nothing changed. But what has happened so far in terms of this current administration under Acting Secretary Juan Miguel Cuna, we've opened the doors in terms of engagement. Would you imagine us talking to Alianza Tigil Mina? You know what Alianza Tigil Mina is, right? First week, we invited him to the office together with all of his comrades from Sibuyan, etc. They all went to DNR, and we faced them. It was just simply an engagement, asking them, what are your issues? Why are you against mining? And they were telling us, no, we're not against mining. We simply wanted to make sure that the benefits that should accrue to the communities are given rightfully and in a timely manner. So we now have a regular engagement with all of them. Now, before we were somehow not at liberty to be taking any interviews. That the times have changed. because we know for a fact that as far as MGB is concerned, we have a very, very competent person that would be able to explain geohazard, geology, mining environment, so on and so forth. So to be freed and be able to express this one adds to transparency and credibility on our side. And that's what we are doing at this point in time. If there are issues, we go and face them. Yun po ang advice sa amin ng aming secretary. Ayaw niyang umaakit sa level niya po yung ganong mga issue. Sa level dapat ng regional director. Tapos na. Hindi aakit sa taas. Like yung, naalala na po yung sa Leyte. You know, that big dredging. That was part of the team that went to the DENR to talk about it. And you know, all they wanted to do, all they wanted to ask of us is, what compensation will they be getting?
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Assistant Secretary, perhaps as a closing statement, the question that I can pose would be, what indicators should the Filipinos of the Philippines use to judge whether a mining project has really benefited the country?
When I started with government, when I was invited to go back to government, my first directive to MGB was, I need the GDP to go up to 2% from a 0.5. No? Right now it's at 0.7.4. We're hoping that would be, the 1% would be bridged within a short period of time. Hopefully, if Silangan is here, if they are able to operate, we're hoping that that would also add on to our GDP. And in my estimation, this low-hanging fruit that we've been working on, the MOS with small-scale miners, if we are able, in fact, to really completely get them on board, I am pretty sure we will reach that 2%. So that would be my metrics in terms of success story.
Okay, thank you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, may we ask you to have a final round of applause for the message of Assistant Secretary Michael Cabalda. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming in today. Thank you.